Do you like best of music list? Do you like music tier list? Do you like ranting and complaining about these lists? Then join me. And for this tier list Tuesday, we're gonna rank every single album that made Rate Your Music's top 100 list. So we're gonna start with number 100 and go all the way to number one. So we notice the different tiers. S tier is going to be 5-star albums. A tier, 4.5. B tier, 4 stars. C, 3.5 stars. D, 3. And then F will be below 3 stars. So we'll get right into number 100. And hopefully I don't mess up the pronunciation. It's Club da Esquina by Milton Nascimento and Lowell Borges. So, like I said, I apologize if I messed this up. So, this is MPB, which is basically M's music, P is popular, and B's Brazilian. So, it's Brazilian popular music. And I do like a lot of the MPB. And this is a pretty good MPB album. I didn't actually get a chance to look up the lyrics, but it looks like there's at least some social commentary involved, and most MPB seems to be influenced by the political climate in Brazil. But even if I don't know the lyrics, it still has a pretty good vibe to it. And it's an album that you can kind of group to and just kind of enjoy, even if you don't understand the lyrics. So it's a good album. Had it at 4 stars. That will put it in the B tier. So number 99, we got songs of Leonard Cohen. And I do really like Leonard Cohen. I'm not sure if that's my favorite Leonard Cohen album, but it's an excellent Leonard Cohen album. And the one thing that obviously stands out about Leonard Cohen is basically the lyrics. Like before he became a musician, he was a poet and a novelist. So there's a certain quality to his lyrics that kind of connect on a deeper level. And then quite often there's different imagery that he incorporates, at times even biblical imagery. But yeah, it's an excellent album. It opens up strong with Suzanne, So Long, Mary Ann, love that. But the entire album's pretty strong. I had it 4.5 stars. That will put it in the A tier. So we got 98. And I don't want to get too uptight about this because at the end of the day, all of it's just opinions. But yeah, this album only be a 98. This to me is probably one of the more, if I am going to get critical, this is probably one of the my bigger grievances. So we got Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder, which is probably my favorite Stevie Wonder album as well. But this is part of his golden age period where there was like 4 albums in a row. But he basically had that kind of classic period where every single album was pretty solid. But yeah, this album's easy S tier. And there's also some great socially conscious material, like Higher Ground's a great song, and really funky as well. And then it has like one of his best protest songs, Living for the City. But the entire album's excellent, and it's a really good mix of the political and the spiritual. So yeah, easy S tier. So then we got some Metallica. So this is album 97, Masters of Puppets. And also another excellent album. It's probably a contender for my favorite Metallica album. I mean, basically, I would say the first 4 albums, I probably had all 4 of them at 4.5 stars. So all four of them might be in contention for the best. And then the fifth album's the Black Album, which was a good album. But then after that, they basically took a nosedive. But yeah, I love the title track. Disposable Heroes is a great anti-war song. And they don't always get enough credit for their political material and the protest songs. And it's something that I have featured their protest music on my website. It's my first shameless plug. So we'll see how many shameless plugs I can get in. Ongoing history of protestsongs.com. But yeah, they're overlooked for their social commentary and for the protest music. But yeah, excellent thrash album. 4.5 stars. We'll put it in the A tier. So 96 will be the newest album on this list. So this is from 2024. And I sometimes have a tough time when you do best of list, know where to rank recent albums. But it is good to know that Rate Your Music, it's a user-based album, so it's not like a critical hit list. So they're not necessarily gauging things like overall importance or legacy or anything like that. But yeah, it's not really necessarily like the whole like synth pop or whatever you want to call this. I don't really know if it's necessarily in my wheelhouse, but I don't mind it. It's okay. It's an okay, decent album. Had it 3.5 stars. We'll put it in C tier. Then we got our next album, 95, Black Sabbath, the debut album. And it's a solid, excellent debut. Rest in peace, Ozzy. And I love the fact that the opening track's called Black Sabbath. I actually enjoy when bands do that. So it's kind of like a theme song and a mission statement. So the album as a whole, it doesn't necessarily kick ass as much as the other albums, a little bit slower and more brooded. But I also do really like the ominous, apocalyptic feel of it as well. Like it creates a certain mood that I kind of dig as well. So yeah, excellent debut album from the Godfathers of Heavy Metal, 4.5 stars. Goes into the A tier. Then we got All Your Experience by the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Easy S tier. It's actually a tough one because there's actually two versions, the UK version and the US version, and they have slightly different track listings. And not just track listings, they even have some different tracks on them. But I'd probably rank both versions as 5 stars. And the version I actually owned on CD was actually the US version, which had a different album cover to what's here. But the version I streamed online to rate this was actually a combined version that had all the tracks that had appeared on both versions. But yeah, that's definitely 5 stars. And a lot of the classic tunes. Like Hey Joe, it was on the US version, but not the UK version. Foxy Lady classic song. Purple Haze, which was on the US version. Probably I prefer the US version just because of Purple Haze and Hey Joe. But that's that album. Jimi Hendrix is a genius. He's done things with the guitar no one's ever done. Then we got our next album, Velocity Design Comfort by Sweet Trip. And yeah, I do not like this album. So it's a glitch pop album and it's really long. And I'm not a big fan of glitch pop to begin with, but the glitchy elements of the album, at times the album's pretty close to unlistenable. And it's a bit frustrating because there's actually moments on the album where I did enjoy. Like I actually enjoyed the dream pop elements and I actually enjoyed the female vocals. The female vocals were actually really pretty. And that actually saved the album a bit. Like I would have given it an even lower rating. But yeah, it was way too long. It was a slog to get through. And if I wasn't making the effort to listen to every single album for this tier list, I just would have stopped like halfway through. But yeah, I would have gone even lower, but like I said, the dream pop elements were cool, female vocals were cool. So I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. But 2.5 stars still puts it in the F tier. So you go into the garbage bin, you're trash. Maybe not trash, but definitely probably the worst album on this list. Actually, there's one other album that is probably comparable that we'll get to later. So the next album we'll get to is the Avalanches, which is a really cool instrumental hip hop album, some really cool samples. And at times it's really fun to listen to. But unfortunately, this is actually an issue with a lot of albums on this list. It's way too long and it does get repetitive. So that does bring the album down a bit. But yeah, I had it, it was good. It had 3.5 stars. That puts it in the C tier. So our next album, Midnight Marauders by a Tribe Called Quest. I'm a big Tribe Called Quest fan, and they're one of my favorite hip hop artists. Definitely one of my favorite hip hop groups. For hip hop groups, probably easy top five. Excellent album. The road tour's pretty awesome, but also the entire album's pretty good. I love how they blend the jazzy elements. Pretty good use of crate digging with the samples. I love Q-Tip. I mean, I like the other rappers too, and Five Dog's pretty good. But Q-Tip, he's actually a favorite MC of mine. So yeah, excellent album, easy S tier. Then we got some Closer by Joy Division. And I really like Joy Division. I like the moodiness of it. I know that Ian Curtis can be acquired taste, but I do think his vocals are effective in conveying the messages. Isolation is a great song, really good album to listen to when you're depressed. Or might actually be a really bad album that you listen to depressed. I'm not entirely sure, but it's an album that definitely suits a certain mood and vibe. Added 4.5 stars, puts it in the A tier. Then we got Symbolic by Death. And to be honest, I'm not a big death metal fan, but I like this album. It is a lot more accessible than most death metal albums, and partly because it's a bit more melodic than most death metal albums. So I think this is the album that someone who doesn't like death metal, if there's one album they might like, it'll probably be this album. And then if you don't like this album, then you're just not going to like any death metal. So had it 4 stars. That will put it in the B tier. Then we got some Outcast, Aquamarine. I was actually surprised that this is the only Outcast album on the list. I can understand why this might have been the top ranked, even though my favorite is Stankonia, but it's an excellent album. Rosa Parks is a banger, but the entire album kicks ass and there's some pretty good social commentary. And Outcast is also, I mentioned Tribe Called Quest. Outcast is probably right up there in my top five. Probably a coin toss where I would rank between Outcast and a Tribe Called Quest. I'm trying to think. My number one rap group might be Public Enemy. So probably Public Enemy, Beastie Boys, Let's Go a Tribe Called Quest, and then Outcast. So that's kind of like a bonus list here. So yeah, easy 5 star album, S tier. Then we got some Carrie and Lowell by Suffin Stevens. And I really like this album. It's very melancholy, very moody. There's some moments there where they even like choke you up a bit. but I also, yeah, I don't want to get too critical with it, but it's something kind of held me back from putting it on S tier, but it's an excellent album. So put it at 4.5 stars. Then we got Karma by Phil Standards. Not Standards, Sanders. Getting tongue tied here, but I'm not editing. So this tier list could be a hot mess. So yeah, I'm not a jazz aficionado, so sometimes it's like, how do I rank jazz? But the jazz I do like tends to be a bit more avant-garde and adventurous. And this album definitely fits into that mold. And I do like the spiritual element as well. So it has a vibe and I enjoy listening to it. So yeah, I had 4.5 stars. We'll put it in the A tier. And the next album we got is Laughing Stock by Talk Talk. So this is kind of an alt rock album. So a little bit artistic. Um, so yeah, for anyone that knows Talk Talk, mainly for It's My Life, this may or may not be an album that you're going to be into because it's definitely a different direction. I don't mind the album. It's a good album. Still fairly connected to it, but there's nothing bad about it. At a 3.5 stars, that would put it in the C tier. Then next, we got Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan. And this is another one where, yeah, I don't want to get too critical once again, but how is this album only 84, especially considering some of the albums that are ranked higher? But once again, you do have to look at the rate your music demographic. And it is a broad demographic. Like there's like, for example, prog rock does really well in rate your music, but there's also I think a lot of hipster music nerds as well. So I think that's why there could be some picks on here that maybe wouldn't make it on a traditional critical top 100. But yeah, it's an excellent 5 star album. I love Blood on the tracks. Excellent songs like Tango Up in Blue and Idiot Rid. And it's probably one of his best albums vocally. Like he almost has a traditionally good singing voice on this album. Even though I always love Bob Dylan vocally, because I think he does a good job of conveying the message and the vocals stand out. But this is probably one of the more better albums as far as I'm a traditional singing voice. I mean, it's not, there's other albums that are comparable, like Nashville Skyline. It's probably a bit more accessible vocal wise too. But I love the album and the depth of the songwriting. And this kind of like is a divorce album. And there's a couple of like really good, like a few songs on it. So we got Blonde on Blonde. So yeah, this has some of Bob Dylan's best songs, and really probably should be a 5 star album. And I'm probably being nitpicky, but the very first song on the album, Rainy Day Woman, number 1235. I hate that song. It's one of the worst songs Bob Dylan ever did. It's one of the worst songs that he's ever done. And yeah, you could easily just skip that song and start with track two. But for this exercise, I'm listening to every album and every song on the album. So opening the album with that song, it just puts me in a bad mood. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm being unfair here, but I'm deducting a half star because of Rainy Day Woman. But I love a lot of the other songs on it, like Visions of Joanna is an all-time favorite Bob Dylan song. I love the closer, Sad Eyed Lady of the Lowlands. If anything, what he should have did, Visions of Joanna's third song on the album, that should be the opening track. Sad Eyed Ladies of the Lowland should have been the closer. Rainy Day Woman should have never been recorded. And then it would have been a classic, all time classic 5-star album. But yeah, I'm being nitpicky. It's gonna be 4.5 stars. Gonna put it in the A tier. The next album, we got Mezzanine by Massive Attack. So this is definitely in contention of my favorite hip hop album of all time. I mean, there's another album we're gonna discuss later that's right up there. But yeah, I love this album. I love the contrast in the vocals too. A lot of the album features Horace Andy. Sorry, my speech impediment. I really do have a speech impediment, so I'm not making fun of people's speech impediments. So Horace, Andy, and then the other ones feature Elizabeth Fraser. And I enjoy both vocal styles, but I probably prefer Elizabeth Fraser. She definitely has these gorgeous, ethereal vocals. But yeah, there's a lot of songs. Some of the songs are absolutely gorgeous, like obviously like Teardrops. But then there's other songs on the album, like Inertia Creeps, that is a bit more, don't want to say creepy, but it's kind of a bit more brooding. I guess brooding is the word. But yeah, it's an excellent album and some really stunning moments. So easy S tier, 5 stars. There we go, another Metallica album. So I already mentioned that basically the first four Metallica albums are my favorite Metallica albums. I had them all at 4.5 stars. So Ride the Lightning. It's probably at a similar level to Master of Puppets, so I'm not exactly sure which album I'd put first. But similar to Master of Puppets, this album actually has some really good political commentary as well. Like the album, and especially the title track, has to deal with someone that's basically sentenced to death, like a public execution on the electric chair. But there is some fantastic moments on this album and some definitely classics like Fade to Black, which is definitely one, I guess, one of their, would it be their first ballad? But yeah, that's definitely a powerful album. Not album. I'm really getting tongue tied here. This video is really gonna be a hot mess. But yeah, Fade to Black is a gorgeous song. And yeah, excellent album. So a highlight of their career, 4.5 stars, goes in the A tier. So what do we got next? We got some David Bowie, number 80, Station to Station. So yeah, that album is 4.5, 4 stars, not 4.5, because it didn't quite make 4.5. It's a good album. Station to Station's a good song. Golden Years is great. I'm a little mixed on what I think of the closing track. Wild is the Wind. Um, I mean, the song actually predates Nina Simone. I'm trying to remember who did it initially. I forgot, even though I did research it. But Nina Simone has the version that I basically mostly associated the Nina Simone song, and David Bowie recorded his version in homage to Nina Simone. And I guess he did a decent enough job, but he's not Nina Simone. And that's not necessarily even being critical about it, because Nina Simone's not David Bowie. I think this is a good David Bowie album. I don't quite connect the same way as some other albums, including a couple of albums that are going to be on this list. But it's a good album, had it 4 stars. We'll put it in the B tier. Then we got The Doors next. Yeah, like we saw it debut album. And this actually has one of the better bookends in rock and roll history. At least I think it's up there. Like you got Break On Through to the Other Side. Like how can you open an album better than that? And then finishes with the end. Like, how can you, like, that's definitely the ultimate climax song, absolute epic. And there's other like great songs like Soul Kitchen, The Crystal Ship, like My Fire. The only song that I'm not necessarily too keen on, but I guess could be fun to sing along to, is the Alabama song Whiskey Bar. I'm a little bit not too keen on that, but that being said, the rest of the album is classic enough to kind of make up for it, but maybe hold it back just a little bit. So it's a near perfect album, but doesn't quite make S tier, but a really strong 4.5 stars. So that will put it in the A tier. And then we got Downward Spiral, absolutely easy S tier. And this album benefits from the nostalgia bump. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. But in my teens, like I can't even describe the kind of impact that this had on me. Like Trent Reznor was really able to articulate what I was going through. And to a certain extent, I almost lived through what he was singing about vicariously. Yeah, vicariously. Because I never got to the point where I mean, sometimes I struggle with suicidal thoughts, but I never went full blown. I was never into like the self mutilation, but this was kind of an outlet that helped me not to get to that point. And one song in particular, which is an all time favorite song that don't think there's another song that's affected me quite the same way, is Hurt. Like the lyric, I hurt myself today to see if I can feel, focus on the pain. It's the only thing that's real. Like it's that really had a heavy impact on me. And when Johnny Cash covered it later, once again as an adult, that kind of impacted me as well. But yeah, that album, it's one of the most important albums on a personal level. So next we got some Late Registration by Kanye West. And yeah, we have to separate the art from the artist because obviously Kanye West, he's a piece of shit as a human being. But we're going to look at his music. And the reality is, musically, I don't want to say he's an outright genius. I think that's kind of overrating him a bit. But there are moments of brilliance there. And some of like his production work, like he's probably one of the best hip hop producers of all time. And some of the stuff he's come up with, it is pretty astounding. And this album has some classic moments. Like Touch the Sky is a great song. Even though it's overplayed, I love Gold Digger. It's a banger. Crack music I love. And it's actually, there's like a powerful social statement there. And there's actually some strong anti-Bush sentiments.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
That's actually almost kind of frustrating thing about Kanye West was he actually at one time in his career was a very socially aware artist. He was actually, I would even say, pretty woke. But then obviously he went off the rails at some point in his life. And then I also love my favorite song on the album is Diamonds from Sierra Leone. We get sample of Diamonds Are Forever. And it's also even a political critique of the blood diamond industry as well. But yeah, excellent album. Doesn't quite make it to S tier. Some of the other albums that follow does, but the only thing that held it back a bit is that it's on the long side, which is there's a number of albums that's going to be my main criticism on this list. But yeah, it's A tier, 4.5 stars. So the next album on the list is Ants from Up There. So this is a 2022 album. So this might be the second most recent. Like Magdalena Bay was 2024. And once again, it's if list like that, how do you rank recent albums? But this is user rated, so I guess it's not your typical best of list. But I did really like this album. There is some outstanding moments on it. Like I love Bread Song, Goodwill Hunting. Basketball Shoes is an epic way of closing the album. So yeah, I did really enjoy the album. There's some great moments on it. Once again, a tad bit too long, could use some trimming, but I had it 4.5 stars. Puts it in the A tier. Then we got Grace by Jeff Buckley. This album actually has grown on me over the years. At one time, like the first time I listened to it, like a number of years ago, I never fully connected to it. And Hallelujah, there's a little bit of a disconnect, but I think the Hallelujah I kind of soured on a little bit because once Jeff Buckley did his rendition, it basically became a standard, but everyone was covering Jeff Buckley's version and it was overplayed and it was on like different like reality singing TV shows and it was way overdone. And basically most of the versions are crap and should have never been recorded. And if they're not crap, they at least are unnecessary. But yeah, the album since has grown on me. Like I love Hallelujah. It's hard to listen to it without getting goosebumps. And the rest of the album has some really classic moments on it. Like I like Lover, You Should Have Come Over. Excellent song there. But yeah, excellent album. Doesn't quite make it to 5 stars, but it is a strong 4.5. That'll put it in the A tier. Next, we got some Electric Ladyland, which this is the clean cover. So I believe it's the US cover that they show here. The UK cover is the one that's a little bit more naughty with some naked woman. It's a really good album. Like I said, I prefer all you, maybe I didn't say, but I prefer all you experienced. Also, Broken Record, the album's a bit too long, but there is some classic moments on it, like Voodoo Child, Slight Return, excellent. Cross Down Traffic, excellent song. All Along the Watchtower, it's one of my favorite covers of all time. He basically claimed ownership of the Bob Dylan song. So it is excellent. Still really strong, 4.5 stars. So I will put it in A tier. Next, we got Led Zeppelin 4. And I'm not gonna lie, I like Led Zeppelin, but I don't love Led Zeppelin. Um, don't know if I'm gonna get slight for saying this, but I think they're a tad bit overrated. This is a good album. Like the songs that I really like it has one of my favorite Led Zeppelin songs. Like it closes with When the Levee Breaks. So it's basically this and Kashmir are probably a coin toss of my favorite Led Zeppelin songs. But there's other songs like the Battle of Evermore. I don't mind it, but it's a little bit, I don't want to say self-indulgent, but it's a little bit pretentious for me. And talking about pretentious and self-indulgent, I'm not too keen on Stairways to Heaven. I guess
No stairway. Denied.
in some ways it's an impressive song with the different musical elements, but maybe it's just fatigue, maybe it's overplayed, but it's just kind of bloated and I don't fully connect to it. But overall, it's a good album. I had it 4 stars. I'll put it in the B tier for any hardcore Led Zeppelin fans. I apologize. So next we got Donuts by Jay Dora. And this album is considered very groundbreaking and influential in terms of instrumental hip hop albums. Very skillful, inventive use of sampling. It's a very fun album to listen to. Enjoyable listen. Excellent album. Even though it doesn't quite make it to the S tier, and I think it's just partly because of the nature of it. Because partly because it's not even there's nothing on it which I would call an actual standalone song, which is fine because it's not supposed to be that kind of album. It's not a collection of songs. It's just a really cool vibe. But it's but over the course of the entire album, it's easy to kind of zone out if you're not in that headspace. But it's an excellent, really fun listening experience, really inventive, really important album. Had it 4.5 stars, put it in the A tier. So the next album we got In Utero by Nirvana. So if you have watched my videos before or familiar with me at all, Nirvana is a very important band in my musical development, probably the most important band and a very important musical gateway drug. And that's especially the case with Nevermind, which we're going to talk about again later. So I'll try not to rant about that now. But I love In Utero as well. It's obviously in a different direction in comparison with Nevermind, not quite as accessible, a little bit more abrasive, but I love the kind of more aggressive nature of it. But there is still melodic moments as well. Like there's the beauty of Heart Shaped Box and Pennyroyal Tea and All Apologies. So Kurt Cobain kind of does show a sensitive, melodic, and melancholic side as well. But I love the aggressiveness of stuff like Serve the Servants as well. And also, Great Me, I guess, potentially could be a misunderstood and polarizing track, but it's a very powerful anti-rape tune, which I've discussed on my website. And it'll shameless plug alert on goinghistoryofprotestsongs.com. And on my website, I feature this as part of a list of 5 Nirvana protest songs. But yeah, excellent album. I love it. Easy S tier, 5 stars. And then the next album, Doolittle, also easy S tier, 5 stars. And it's actually kind of cool that Nirvana and the Pixies are back to back because the Pixies were a very important influence on Nirvana. Probably more so on Nevermind and In Utero. But yeah, they definitely, the Pixies, I guess, were basically proto grunge. And they helped create the blueprint of the loud, soft dynamics. But this has some classic, like I love Rave Mutilation. Might be my number one Pixie song. Here Comes Your Man is a little bit of a, don't want to say outlier, but it's a bit of a different approach for them, a bit more jangly. Love Monkey Gone to Heaven, which is also about climate change. Probably one of my favorite climate change tunes. Oh yeah, and the close was really strong. Actually, it's really good bookends. The bass or and then closes with Gouge Away. So excellent bookends. But yeah, classic album. Love it. Easy S tier. Then we got Master of Reality by Black Sabbath. Once again, rest in peace, Ozzy. Easy S tier. Has some of the best songs. Street Leaf is great. Children of the Grave, that kind of kicks ass. I mean, the entire album just, yeah, it's just a rocking classic album. Godfathers of Metal. So yeah, easy S tier. The next album we got is Soundtracks for the Blind by Swans. And yeah, this is an excellent album. So one of the criticisms for a number of these albums is that they're too long. So I might actually sound like a hypocrite here because this album's over 2 hours. But this is one of the few albums that long that justify its length. Like basically it's probably only one tiny hiccup. Like I love the first 4 songs on the album. But then the fifth track, Yum Yap Cures, I wouldn't say it's even a terrible track, but it's a bit of a letdown in comparison. But then it picks up again with the Beautiful Days, which is probably in contender for my favorite song on the album. It's either that or Helpless Child. And Helpless Child is over 15 minutes long. I'm not always a big fan of really long songs as well, but it's an epic song that justifies its length. But yeah, the rest of the album, it doesn't let up. So one little hookup, but everything else, it's a gorgeous album with some stunning moments. And I love the contrast between Michael Guerra's vocals and Jabot's vocals, like Jabot's female vocals, Michael Guerra's male vocals. It's a very moody, I say atmosphere. Sorry, I'm getting tongue tied again and stuttering. But yeah, I really just love the overall mood of this album. It's an excellent listen, but I think it is an album because of the length and because of the mood of it. You do have to be in the right headspace before you listen to it. But if you're in that right headspace, it's like a really compelling listening experience. So I will give it 5 stars. It will make the S tier. So next we got some Marquee Moon by Television. And it's an excellent album. I really enjoyed it. Pretty solid bookends with Sino Ebo and Tone Curtains. And the title track I really like as well. And the rest of the album's pretty good. It's a solid album, very important in the development of like alt punk and post punk. And they were an important part of the CBGB scene. So yeah, it's a really good, solid album. About at 4.5 stars. I'll put it in the A tier. So the next album we got is Introducing by DJ Shadow. So this is like an experimental hip hop album. I don't want to compare it exactly to Donuts by J Dilla. So I think it's a slightly different approach. But where it's similar is there is some inventive use of sampling, and it's kind of a fun album that way. It's kind of cool, like basically the crate dig-in mentality and how he incorporates the different sounds. So it is kind of a fun listening experience. So I had 4.5 stars. Got the A tier. So number 65. And once again, I don't want but the top ranked Bob Dylan album is only 65. I don't know. But like I said, I don't it is user rated and people are entitled to their opinions. But this is by far my absolute all-time favorite Bob Dylan album. And not only my all-time favorite Bob Dylan album, probably on my top 10 of all time. Not 100% sure. Maybe I have to kind of go through that and maybe make a list at some point. But love the album. Excellent bookends like Rolling Stone, obviously classic too. Desolation Row is a contender of one of my all-time favorite Bob Dylan songs. It's definitely his most epic in terms of different like poetic imagery. But yeah, the entire album, there's not a weak track on it. The entire album's pretty stunning. The Ballad of a Thin Man is a pretty scathing indictment of journalists he wasn't a fan of. Highway 61 Revisited is a fun tune with some biblical imagery, maybe borderline sacrilege, but it's enjoyable too. So yeah, like I said, all time fave album, 5 stars, easy S tier. So next we got some Illinois, number 64 by Sufjan Stevens. It's a really good album. I enjoyed it a lot. Once again, too long, sound like a broken record. And the only other thing, if I have to criticize, is it does border a bit onto theatrical. Yeah, I would say theatrical. Just my personal taste, but there is some excellent moments on it. And I really like John Wayne Gacy Jr., probably the best song ever written about a serial killer. But yeah, the entire rest of the album's pretty solid as well. So yeah, we'll give it a 4.5 stars. That'll put it in the A tier. And what we got next, we got some number 63, Bitches Brew by Miles Davis. So I believe it's the second jazz album that showed up. And I already mentioned I'm not a jazz aficionado. I enjoy jazz, but part of the reason why it's tough for me to rank is, and maybe this is a uneducated statement, but jazz is almost something that you kind of enjoy in the background during a dinner party. But that's partly why I like more adventurous albums because it forces you to invest more time and pay more attention. And I do enjoy this album. There's a lot of not only experimentalness, but there's some really cool fusion going on as well. So this is an excellent album. It's probably a contender for one of my top jazz albums. I mean, it's not my number one. My number one jazz album is going to show up later, but it is a 4.5 star album. There's a reason why Miles Davis is considered such an influential artist. So yeah, well, definitely A tier. Next, we got Low by David Bowie. And this is part of, I believe it's considered part of his Berlin trilogy. It's a bit of a departure stylistically because it's more of an ambient electronic sound, some krautrock elements, which I guess comes from recording in Berlin. But I do like the vibe of it. There's some like really cool moments and some moments that kind of don't know how you would describe them, but like kind of like moody, but moody in a good way. So it's an excellent album. I added it 4.5 stars. We'll put it in the A tier. So yeah, never mind. Nirvana 61. I already said. I don't know if I might put it in my number one album of all time, but it's my number one most important album to my own musical development. So I'm not gonna get a lot of detail about it because I think I've discussed it before. And also on my website, not my website, on my YouTube channel, I also made a tier list video ranking every track on the on Nevermind. Basically, there's no fill on the album. Like every song is solid. It's a kick-ass album, and it really benefits from the nostalgia bump. Like there's just that real emotional connection for me. So yeah, easy S tier. I'm not really ranking these in any order, but I'm gonna put it number one on the S tier. Just because the album was that impactful. So the next album we got is Death Consciousness, which is kind of a post grunge slash shoegaze album. Once again, way too long. It's 85 minutes. There's some cool moments on it and some interesting song titles that I get a kick out of. So I don't hate the album. It's a good album. It's just hard to fully invest in because there are moments where it meanders a bit. But I did have a 3.5 stars, so that will put it in the C tier. So next we got Black Star by David Bowie. And this is an album I struggle with a bit. It's not a bad album, but I sometimes wonder if it's an album that's, I don't know, I don't want to be morbid about it, but the album basically came out just shortly before his death, so I think it kind of got higher acclaim because of that. I don't know if it's fair to say that. The only thing I will say about the album, which is probably why it connected, there are elements of the album that almost feel prophetic. Like it was almost like David Bowie, I don't know if he was predicting his own death, but he kind of knew that it was coming. So I can see in that way would it be emotional connection. But personally, I just have a tough time connecting to the album overall. So maybe it's just me where there's a personal disconnect. But I do think it's a good album. I think as a final last album, it's fine. But I had it at 3.5. So that puts it in a C tier, which I know might be an unpopular take, but I'm gonna be honest. And at the end of the day, it's all just opinion. So there's more important things to get worked up about. So next we got Selected Ambient Works, 85 to 92 by Aphex Twin. Really long album, broken record, which is too bad because it otherwise it would be a good ambient album with a really cool chill out vibe, but it does start to drag a bit. But like I said, I like the vibe of the album, so it's good. I have a tough time listening to it on a regular basis because it's way too long. I have 3.5 stars, so that puts it in the C tier. So the next album is number 57, Close to the Edge by Yes. Yeah, so I apologize to prog rock fans. I don't like prog. I don't hate this album. It's an okay album. There's some interesting elements, but at times it's a little bit slog to get through. But I do like it better than another prog rock album that we're gonna get to in a bit. Um, so I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. And I got obviously great instrumentalists. But yeah, I just this is a disconnect for me. But yeah, I started 3 stars, so it doesn't quite make the garbage bin. So we'll put in the D tier. That's like our first album in the D tier. So now we got some Kate Bush, Hounds of Love. Love Kate Bush, my favorite Kate Bush album. Some classic songs on it. Obviously, the most well-known tune that got a resurgent because of Stranger Things, Running Up That Hill, or The Over God. But the title track's awesome. I love Cloud Busting. Love the cinematic music video for it. But the entire album is just goddamn gorgeous. Definitely, Ethereal Voice of a Goddess. Love You, Kate Bush. Love Hounds of Love. Easy S tier. Then we got some Food by MF Doom. And I do enjoy MF Doom. Like he's basically very abstract and um experimental. And this album has just like a really cool fun vibe. All the albums kind of are somewhat food based. So some of it's literal and some of it I'm assuming is metaphorical. Some double entendres, maybe a little bit naughty, I'm not sure. But it is a fun listening experience. I did enjoy it. So yeah, we'll go 4.5 stars and rest in peace. MF Doom. And what do we got next? I'm not even gonna bother saying the title because it's in Japanese. I guess the English would be 98.12.28. So December 28th, 1998. So I guess that's the date of the concert performance. And I don't mind Fishman's. I don't get what the overall buzz is because Radio Music loves them. And I'm not sure why they love them to that extent. And the album's like way too long. But there is some interesting things going on. I don't mind the dream pop elements of it. It just drags a little bit, but it's good. It's decent. Had it 3.5 stars. We'll put it in the C tier. And then now we go to the Beatles' White Album. Yeah, I mean, compared to some of the other albums that we're going to talk about, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say too much. It's people's opinions, but to me, this is an all-time classic album. And 53 actually might, no, actually, and I'll put it a lot higher than 53 on my list. This is probably a top 10 album for me. But I can understand a 53 ranking. What I don't understand is some of the albums that are going to be ahead of it, how that kind of happened. But people are entitled to their opinion. But my absolute favorite Beatles album. So yeah, easy S tier. And I partly love I guess experimental is the word, but it was almost because the band was not getting along, so everyone was kind of doing their own thing. So instead of having arguments over what made the album, it's like, let's just put everything on the album. So kind of throw it against the wall, see if it sticks. But I think it makes for an entertaining album and kind of an eclectic album. And even some of the more quirky moments I get a kick out of. Like I love stuff like the continuing story of Bungalow Bill, but it also has a couple of really gorgeous songs like Blackbird, gorgeous civil rights protest song. Once again, shameless plug, ongoing history, new music, not new music, which is a really good album class podcast and radio program that I love. Ongoing history of protestsongs.com. I have a list of like 11 Beatles protest songs. And I think like four of the songs on that list come from the White Album. So this is probably the most political album, but Blackbird's gorgeous. Also, it has one of my all-time favorite Beatles songs, Dear Prudence. I think it's all Gently Weeps, also a gorgeous song. So yeah, that's some of my all-time favorite Beatles moments. Easy S tier. So next we got Some Discovery by Daft Punk. I don't mind Daft Punk. It's a decent album for what it is. I guess it's fun to dance to. It's not totally my cup of tea, but I don't hate it. I gave 3.5 stars. We'll put it in the C tier. Then we got some Either Or by Elliott Smith. I do like this album. There's some excellent moments. Probably my favorite song on it is 2:45 a.m. I get choked up listening to that song. But the entire album is pretty emotional and it's a vibe. So yeah, I had it 4.5 stars. Put it in the A tier. So next we got some Godspeed You, Black Emperor. This might be my favorite album by them. So this album, like most of the albums, definitely experimental. Very good use of field recordings and spoken word sampling. And like all their albums, there's some powerful political statements. So I don't know if I said the name of the album. F sharp, A sharp, Infinity. But yeah, this is probably my favorite album by them. It has some really stunning moments. At a 4.5 stars. We'll put it in the A tier. So next we got The Low End Theory by A Tribe Called Quest. And I gave Midnight Marauders before 5 stars, but I love this album even more. Like this is would it be on my might be on my top five for all time favorite hip hop albums. I'll have to do a deeper dive to figure that out. But I love this album. Definitely one of the greatest jazz rap albums of all time. I love Scenario, which is, I mean, it has like strong bookends of Excursions and Scenario. And Scenario is one of the best posse tracks of all time. And then Busta Rhymes, like he's like the legend of features, and his feature there is some of the greatest rapping of all time. But yeah, love this album. Easy S tier, Low End Theory, Tribe Called Quest. So next we got some Unknown Pleasures by Joy Division. So yeah, this I talked about Closer before the sophomore album. I had that 4.5. But I probably even prefer this album. This album kind of gets to me even more. It has like some of my favorite songs, like Day of the Lords. Yeah, that's very impactful. He lost control. That's kind of almost like a goth version of a dance banger. But yeah, I love the album. Definitely easy S tier, 5 star album. So what we got next here? We got In a Silent Way by Miles Davis. Yeah, Miles Davis is probably right up there as far as my favorite jazz performance go. And I already acknowledge I'm not really a jazz aficionado, but it's the type of jazz that I do like. Like it's basically 2 tracks, but it's very adventurous and and I like kind of that adventurous spirit when jazz kind of goes that route. So it does make it easier to invest with what's going on. Like there's some interesting, cool elements going on. So yeah, that 4.5 stars. We'll put in the A tier. Then next we got some Bjork, Homogenic. And yeah, it's an excellent album. It's some of my favorite Bjork tracks. And it's some really good, like the bookends are solid. Like with Hunter and All Is Full of Love. So those are excellent ways to open and close the album. And there is some gorgeous moments of the album as well. So yeah, it's an excellent album. 4.5 stars. We'll put it in the A tier. So next we got What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. Yeah, for me, this is an easy S tier. 5-star albums. And one of the most important albums of all time. Once again, shameless plug. Ongoing history of protestsongs.com. I featured the album on there. So obviously, title track's one of the most important protest songs of all time, but it's not the only important protest song. Like the open, like this has actually one of the best bookends of all time. What's Going On? It opens with City Blues, Make Me Wanna Holler. Both of those all-time great protest songs. Missy Missy Me is one of the best ecological protest songs, but the entire album is just gorgeous. All-time important album. Easy S tier. Then next we got some experimental underground hip hop. So we got Atrocity Exhibition by Danny Brown. Yeah, I really enjoyed this album. Not sure if I'd put it like on a top 100, but rate your music demographically. Experimental underground hip hop does really well. So there's a big demographic for that. And as far as experimental underground hip hop albums go, this is definitely an above average. And I like experimental hip hop albums. Like there's probably albums I enjoy more. Like I probably enjoy JPEG Mafia more than Danny Brown. But this is an excellent album. I did enjoy it. It's at 4.5 stars, or I'll put it in the A tier. So next we got some Blonde by Frank Ocean. And personally, so again, tongue tie again, I probably actually enjoy Channel Orange more than Blonde, but maybe I'm in the minority. At least if radio music, it looks like I am, because Channel Orange did not make the top 100. But it's a really good alternative R&B album. Too long, so once again, I'm gonna sound like a broken record there. But yeah, it's a good album. I added 4 stars. We'll put it in the B tier. So we now got album 42, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles. So yeah, this is an album. I mean, it's still well regarded, but I remember in the past with lists, this quite often would be towards the top of the list. And this was considered like the Beatles' best album. But in recent years, there seems to be a bit of a shift. Like, for example, I think most lists, Abbey Road is now regarded as like the Beatles' masterpiece. But there's other albums that sometimes are more well regarded now than this album. So it seemed to lose some of its luster, but still considered a classic, groundbreaking album. And I love the album. It's a good album. I mean, I'm not sure where it would rank among my list of Beatles albums. Might be top 5, but most of the Beatles albums are classics. Like that's just the way it is. But yeah, easy S tier. And there's also we talked a couple of times about bookends. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. That's a good bookend. And then also Day in the Life, excellent song. So yeah, you can't get too much better than those two bookends there. So yeah, it's an excellent album and obviously groundbreaking for some of the studio techniques. So the next album, and it's another one of How Can the Glow Part 2 by the Microphones be better than Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? I don't get it, but you know what? I don't have to get it. It's people's opinions. So it is what it is. And this is an album that on the surface I should like. I like lo-fi albums. I like albums that are kind of quirky. But this album, I find it a slog to get through. I just don't connect to it. And it's also way too long. Like there's aspects like I don't absolutely hate it. Um, like it doesn't quite make the F tier, which we'll get to in a second, but I don't connect. And I do like Phil Evelyn. I think that's how you say it. If I butchered the pronunciation, I apologize. I like some of his other projects, like the Mount Erie album that he released in 2024, Night Palace. I think I had that at 4 stars. It was a decent album. And there are moments on this album, like it's not even bad, it's just it's long and there's just not much like I just don't fully connect to it. It's a bit of a slog. So yeah, 3 stars, so that will put it in the D tier. So now we'll go to number 40. So what do we got here? We got The Queen is Dead by the Smiths. And I do love this album. Probably definitely my favorite album by the Smiths. All-time great album. Pretty good bookends. Like The Queen is Dead opens it up. Some girls are bigger than others. The only critique I might state is they probably would have been even better if they changed the album sequencing a bit, because it almost seems a bit anticlimactic that the second last track is There's a Light That Never Goes Out. And then Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others kind of follows, which I do enjoy. Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others, but that's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek tune where There's a Light That Never Goes Out is like this gorgeous, devastating tune. But that's only a minor quibble because the album's All Cure, No Frill, no Frill. Yeah, no Frill. Nothing from Michael Jackson's Frill is on this album. But yeah, the album is All Cure, No Fill. It has some of the Smiths' best work. Like I also love The Boy with the Thorn in His Side. But yeah, the entire album, goddamn gorgeous. Easy S tier. And then next, this is another album that I don't quite get. It's not even a bad album. It's just how is this one of the best albums of all time? That being said, it's actually a really good album. Um, I don't mind the dream pop shoegaze elements. It's actually a fairly easy album to listen to. Like if I was to make a album list for 1993, maybe it might make my top 25. So maybe just being overly critical. Maybe there is a reason why people might think this is one of the all-time favorite albums. Because it still was a really good album. I did have it 4 stars. So maybe I'm being just a bit too nitpicky. Um, it's just when there's other albums I love, I can't see how this is better than the Smiths, The Queen is Dead. But at the end of the day, who cares? It's all just opinion. So Slovaki Slow Death, 4 stars. We'll put it in the B tier. So next we got The Money Store by Death Grips. So this is basically going to be one of those polarizing bands. People tend to love or hate them. I'm probably one of the few that kind of like them. Like I appreciate some of the experimental elements. So I do kind of dig it, but at times it can be a tough listen as well. But overall, it's like a really good album. I did have it at 4 stars. We'll put it in the A tier. And then next, we got some Pink Moon. by Nick Drake. Once again, really strong bookends. We got Pink Moon, which initially I kind of knew as that song in a car commercial, but it's a gorgeous song. And it was actually a bit ahead of its time because it kind of fit in well with some of like the indie singer songwriter stuff that kind of emerged in the 90s and the 2000s. Like you can kind of see how Elliott Smith would have been heavily influenced by this. So it probably was like 20, 25 years before its time. But it's a gorgeous album. Pink Moon, strong opener from the morning, goddamn gorgeous closure. So really strong bookends. Probably not a weak track on the album. So yeah, definitely an S tier. This is a 5-star album for me. And next we got some In the Airplane Over the Sea. And I love this album as well. So definitely some great songs. And once again, we could bookends The King of Carrot Flowers Part 1. Actually, Part 2 and 3 that follows are excellent ways to open the album. Actually, the first 4 tracks are like a really strong opening sequence there. But I also love the closer, Two-Headed Boy Part 2. And I love the lyrics, and it's just like kind of like it's just the concept of it. And I love the lo-fi-ness, but there's still a certain poeticness to it as well. So yeah, it's an excellent album. We enjoy it. We'll put it in the S tier. And next we got Some Heaven or Las Vegas. Excellent, gorgeous album. I love Elizabeth Fraser's ethereal vocals. So that's kind of the key there, because at times it can be hard to connect to some of the songs because it does get a little bit experimental. It almost not, I don't want to say they're not songs, but they're not traditional songs that you can kind of sing along to. Um, but the vibe, you can't beat the vibe. Like it's very hypnotic and it really draws you in. And Elizabeth Fraser has like probably one of the most gorgeous singing voices. But yeah, Kanye West at his best is absolutely brilliant. I did find the album a little bit, tad bit too long, but there was some excellent moments. And it does have my favorite Kanye song, Jesus Rocks. So he doesn't have anything to me that quite scales those heights. So yeah, excellent album. Had it 4.5 stars. We'll put it in the A tier. So next we'll go to Dummy by Portishead. So I mentioned before that Mezzanine by Massive Attack was a contender for my favorite trip hop album. So the reason why it's a contender and not the clear number one is because Dummy is neck to neck. So basically it's a coin toss of which album I like more. So Dummy is also an easy S tier. Like I love the album, like some stunning moments, like the Closer Glory Box, love it. Sour Times, love it. Wandering Stars. But then my favorite song on it is Strangers, and it kind of has that pulsating sound that I remember reading something that was supposed to simulate the sound of a pacemaker. Don't know if that's the case or not, but it's almost like a heartbeat in the song, which is kind of just very hypnotic to me. So it's just an album that just draws you in. So yeah, I love the album. Easy S tier. So next we got 32, Spiderland by Slint. And I like the album. It's a really good album. Um, and I like the sound of it. I like the spoken word elements, a little bit experimental. So it's a solid album. I think it might be a tad bit overrated on some of these lists, but it's a really good album. I can see why maybe music nerds like it. I had it 4 stars, so we'll put it in the B tier. So next we got Eagle by Tyler, the Creator. So it's a really good album. Very emotional, so I can see how people kind of connect to it because it's a very candid album. Um, I don't fully connect, and I don't know why that is, but I like it. It's a really good album. So I did have it at 4 stars, so that will put it in the B tier. So we got another Kanye West album, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Yeah, this by far is my favorite Kanye album. Quite often complain when albums are over an hour, but this is one of the albums that justify the length. And this is probably Kanye at his most honest and candid. And I don't know if it's fair to say it's an emo rap album, but I think it definitely had an influence on emo rap. But yeah, it's a goddamn gorgeous, powerful album. And it's definitely a very confessional album. So yeah, it's definitely by far the best work of art that Kanye West ever did. So we'll put it easy S tier. So next we got Songs in the Key of Life, which is also a really long double album. It's like an hour and 40 minutes, which usually would be too long, but there's no fill on it. This is one of the rare albums that justify its length. And Stevie Wonder is obviously a genius. There's some great songs on it. Sir Duke, classic. Some really good socially conscious songs, like Black Man Week, good social commentary. But yeah, the entire album is stunning. Even though I do prefer Inner Visions, which I think puts me in a minority, it's still a 5 star album. We'll put it in the S tier. And speaking of S tier, we got Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers. Yeah, this is actually a contender for one of the best hip hop albums of all time. Would it be? It might be my top five. It's definitely up there. I love the album. And I love like how they reincorporate these samples from like martial art films. That's very inventive and it makes it a really fun listening experience. And there's some like really cool tracks on it. Like I love Protect Your Neck. They're my favorite songs. Dream, Cash Rules Everything Around Me. I think that's a very powerful statement as well. And it's kind of, I don't want to say it's ambiguous, but it's like, is it a materialistic song or anti-materialistic? I think it definitely does talk about the drawbacks that come from pursuing a materialistic aspect, but it also is kind of promotes it at the same time, which kind of makes it interesting. I guess I'll say juxtapositioning. But yeah, it's a excellent all-time GOAT track, all-time GOAT album. So yes, easy S tier. So next we got this is an album. Don't even want to say it's a bad album because I had it 3.5 stars. It's basically one long song, long season. Um, there's cool elements to it, but it is long. It's hard to invest in. But maybe the novelty of one really long song appeals to music nerds. But it is good. I had it 3.5 stars. I just don't get how this is one of the best albums of all time. But once again, I guess I don't have to get it. So 3.5 stars. That puts it in the C tier. So next we got some Pet Sounds. Yeah, this is obviously an all-time classic album. yeah, this album, Easy S Tier, and basically some of like the best, not just Beach Boy moments and songs, but this is Brian Wilson's masterpiece. It showed his brilliance as a producer and some gorgeous songs. Like Wouldn't It Be Nice is a beautiful way to open the album. I love Sloop John B. But speaking of albums I love, God Only Knows, one of the best songs of all time. Goddamn gorgeous tune. I get goosebumps every time I hear it. So yeah, like I said, easy S tier. Okay, so I mentioned before about my least favorite album on the list, and you notice I only have one F tier album. Well, we're gonna have a second. This is probably gonna be an unpopular one. We got Red by King Crimson. First off, I really don't like Proud. And this is definitely a proggy album. I guess I can see the appeal because obviously instrumentally high level of skill, but it's just I don't know. Don't want to see pretentious and self-indulgent. I will say that. I think it's a little bit self-indulgent. Maybe I'm being unfair. But I just found it a slog to get through. I actually at first tried to listen to it during my 1974 deep dive, and I stopped listening to it because I couldn't quite get through it. So I tried again this time because I decided in order to do this tier list, I'm actually going to listen to every album. And I actually liked it marginally better. Um, the last song, Starless, there's elements that I like, and if you cut it in half, I might almost like the song. But I still found the album a bit of a slog. I had it 2.5 stars. So that puts it in the F tier. So sorry for King Crimson fans and prog rock fans. So next we got Kinda Blue by Miles Davis. And I like the album, but I enjoy his more experimental and fusion albums a bit more. This is a bit more of a cool jazz album, so it's a bit more straightforward. Like it's a pleasant, easy listening album, but what I mentioned before, where sometimes the disconnect with jazz is just something in the background during a dinner. This to me is like the perfect background dinner party music. But it's good. It sounds nice. I had it 4 stars. So I'll put it in the B tier. And once again, I'm not a jazz aficionado. So I'll put that disclaimer there. So take my opinion with a grain of salt. The next album, number 23, is Animals by Pink Floyd. So, of course, it's a concept album based on George Orwell's Animal Farm. And because that's a very political novel that even seems to resonate more in the current political climate. So it's the same with this album. So it's a really compelling concept album with some really strong political statements as well. So definitely a great protest album. So another shameless plug, ongoing history of protest songs.com. So you can't help with the shameless plugs. So easy S tier. And speaking of easy S tiers, the next album, Disintegration by The Cure. Yeah, it's by far my favorite Cure album. Easy 5 star album. Some fantastic songs, plain song, gorgeous way of opening the album, Pictures of You, great song, love song. This is actually a perfect blend between, like, it has the gothy elements. So if you're kind of in that mood where you kind of want to feel sorry for yourself, and feel kind of depressed. It still fits into that mood, but there's also kind of the poppy elements as well. So I think it has the right blend between accessible and kind of gothy emotional. But yeah, easy S tier, 5-star album. So next we got some John Coltrane, A Love Supreme. So yeah, broken record. I'm not really a jazz aficionado, but it's the type of jazz I can get into because it is a bit more avant-garde, not God, avant-garde, which is basically experimental. So it's very adventurous and some really cool elements. So I did enjoy it. It was a good listening experience at a 4.5. I get why it's well regarded as one of like the best jazz albums and like a groundbreaking album. So yeah, we're at an A tier. So next we got some Vespertine by Bjork. So yeah, excellent album, some stunning moments. And I do really enjoy Bjork. Like I enjoy her vocals, kind of quirky but gorgeous at the same time. And I do enjoy the vibe of this album. It's a little bit more experimental than some of the albums, but there's still enough accessibility that you can get into it. I have 4.5 stars, so that would put it in the A tier. So next we got some The Velvet Underground and Nico. Yes, I love the album. I love The Velvet Underground. Easy S tier. Yeah, strong opener Sunday morning. Great song. Baltimore Parties. Gorgeous too. And then my favorite song is Heroin, which is one of those songs, don't want to say ambiguous, but is it a pro drug or is it a anti-drug tune? Probably neither. It's probably a neutral account of the experience of taking heroin. It's a very heroin tale. But to me, when I listen to the lyrics, it's kind of a good argument not to take it. But it's a very powerful heroin tune. But the entire album is gorgeous. Maybe not even gorgeous because it's a bit more dark or and ominous, so gorgeous may not be the term. But yeah, I love the album Easy S tier. And speaking of Easy S tier, we got some Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Love this album. Rest in peace, Ozzy. It kicks ass. Love Road Pigs. One of the best protest songs of all time. Shameless plug, ongoing history, protestsongs.com. Check it out on the website. I have a list of the top 15 Black Sabbath / Ozzy Osbourne protest songs. But the entire album, great. Love Paranoid. Love Iron Man. I am Iron Man. He lost his mind. Can he see or is he fine? Is he fine? Is he no, blind? Yeah. Sorry, it's getting late and this is a long ass video. But yeah, awesome classic album. Easiest here. So what do we got next? Yeah, we got probably my favorite jazz album of all time. I'm not a jazz aficionado, but this is an album that just has me invested. Like it's just really gripping and compelling. And I did some like research in the music and kind of like the meaning behind it. And there's definitely some political sentiment too. Like it is kind of, I think they call it like the freedom movement, but it's definitely politically motivated. And there's some strong political sentiments there. But yeah, definitely a compelling listen. And it's definitely my all-time favorite jazz album. So it's 5 stars. I'll put it in the S tier. So next we got Revolver by the Beatles. So yeah, obviously easy S tier. Some classic tunes. Taxman, really good protest song. Protest, it's just basically a fun way of protesting the high tax rate. And once again, shameless plug, ongoing history of protestsongs.com. It's featured on my list of Beatles protest songs. Tomorrow Never Knows is kind of when they start to get a little bit more psychedelic and experimental. Oh no, Rigby, gorgeous song. But yeah, the entire album is classic. So easy S tier. So there we go. So the next album, and yeah, I do like Godspeed You Black Emperor on the album. Lift Your Skinny Fist Like a 10 Eyes to Heaven. But yeah, I have a tough time. This is better than the Beatles Revolver. But I get that this probably appeals to a certain demographic, and it's a demographic that tends to use with your music. But it is a really good album. Strong use of Fields recording. Probably like the previous album that I discussed before, the F sharp, A sharp, Infinity. Um, but it's still a really good album with some song. There's some strong social commentary and some political overtones. So I did have 4 stars, so that does put it in the B tier. So next we got Matic by Nas, another contender for all time rap album. And I love the album. Very gritty. It's a good example of street journalism. And Nas, I think he was only 20 at the time. Don't quote me, but I think he was 20 at the time. But yeah, it's definitely just the maturity and social awareness of it. It's just a compelling album that really draws you in. And Nas, you can't really beat his lyrical flow. So really good lyricist and really good MC, definite GOAT level. So easy S tier. So next, we got the rise and fall of Iggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Also easy S tier. I love the album. I don't know if there's a weak track on the album, like just about every song is classic. Um, I mean, Iggy Stardust is probably my favorite. Starman kind of fits into that same mood, kind of like the sci-fi rock and roll rock and roll rock star. Like I said, it's getting late here. I shouldn't have been recording this at midnight. But yeah, I'll say that again. The alien space age rock star. But yeah, definitely love the album. Any songs cure, no filler. So next we got Remain in the Light by Talking Heads. I think it is slightly overrated. I think it's a really good album, but it's probably not even my favorite album by them. But there is some strong songs. My favorite song is probably Once in a Lifetime. Um, but yeah, it's a good album. Nothing particularly bad about it. I have 4 stars. Put it in the B tier. Next, we got Abbey Road. Not sure about it being only 11. Then again, I'm not exactly sure if because my favorite album is the Beatles' White Album, but it still might make my top 10 album as well. I definitely love the Abbey Road Suite. But I definitely love the sequence of Golden Slumbers and Carry That Weight. Like it definitely works as kind of one song, but the entire album's just fantastic. Definite classic, easy S tier. There we go. And next, a number 10 album. No, I don't think it's better than Abbey Road. They got Loveless, My Bloody Valentine. Might I get if you're like a hardcore fan of shoegaze, I think this is considered like the definitive shoegaze album. So part of the problem could be I'm not a hardcore fan of shoegaze. I do like the dreamy elements. I think there's aspects of it that's kind of pretty. So I like it. I just don't fully connect in the same way that others do. So it might be a tad bit overrated based on the acclaim of it. But it's a really good album. I still had it at 4 stars. So that will put it in the B tier. So next we got The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. Easy 5 star album. It definitely saw inventive use of recording technique and sound effects, and some of the best background vocals ever in the Great Gig in the Sky. I mean, basically, the contenders is there saying, Give Me Shelter. Those are probably the best two background singing songs. Maybe that's a list for another day. But yeah, excellent classic album with some definite spectacular moments. So next we got Kid A. And I actually talked about this before in a previous tier list video. I ranked every single Radiohead album. So I always had a tough time connecting to Kid A. Initially, part of the issue is that it followed OK Computer, which we'll talk about in a moment, but I love that album. So spoiler, 5 star, easy S tier, all-time favorite album. So it was a letdown based on that. And I had a tough time connecting to it because it is a bit more experimental. Um, Listen to it later grew on me a little bit, but I still have a tough time connecting. But there are some great moments, like Everything in the Right Place is a great song. And that's one of my all-time favorite Radiohead songs, Radio Attack, which is one of the best protest songs about climate change. So once again, shameless plug alert, ongoing history of protestsongs.com. Maybe we should have done a drinking game and you could have been drunk by the end of the video. Should have said that earlier. But yeah, I love Video Attack. It's actually on the website. There's a list of 15 Radiohead protest songs. So it was included on that. So yeah. But overall I had a tough time connecting to the album. So I had 3.5 stars. So that puts it in the C tier. So I know potentially that's an unpopular take. So what we got next here? Yeah, we got some Mad Villainy by Mad Villain. So yeah, this is part of the project of MF Doom and Madlib, so it's a good collaborative project. And it's a good showcase of MF Doom's creative brilliance. And the album is a lot of fun. There's a lot of experimental jazzy elements. It is a fun album to listen to, so I did enjoy it. So yeah, probably we had the album at 4.5. So yeah, we'll put it in the A tier. So next, and potentially unpopular take, we got some King Crimson in the Court of the Crimson King. So I already mentioned I don't like prog, and you notice the other King Crimson album, Red, that made in the F tier. I just did not like that album. So the good news is I like it a lot better than Red. And I actually didn't hate the album. And I love the opening track, 21st Century Schizoid Man is a certified banger. That's like a kick-ass rocking tune. The rest of the Epitaph, I don't mind too much, even though it's a bit proggy. So I don't hate the album. It's good. It's better than most prog albums. At a 3.5, it's probably the best I'm gonna do with this type of album. Yeah, so I'll go to the C tier. Sorry, King Crimson fans. Sorry, prog rock fans. So we got some Kendrick Lamar, some Good Kid, Mad City, excellent album. Definitely shows why Kendrick Lamar is a musical genius. Definitely brilliant, socially conscious rapper. I think he does scale even loftier heights that we're going to talk about in a moment. But this is basically the album where he establishes himself and is a reason why it's a well-regarded classic album. So yeah, we'll put it in the S tier. So now we got Wish You Were Here. Um, really good album. I like it. Tad bit overrated. Shine On You Crazy Diamond has moments that I like, but I do think it's a little bit long. Like, I respect the fact that it's a tribute to Sid Barrett, but the fact that it's a bit long and it opens and closes with it does take me out of the moment a bit. Um, Wish You Were Here, classic song. Love that track. Overall, good album. I get 4 stars. I put in the B tier. Then we got In Rainbows. Excellent album. Was a 5-star album. Um, I love the way that the album was released. I talked about the album a bit more on the tier list video. It was like my third favorite Radiohead album. So I already spoiled my favorite, which we'll get to in a moment. The Bands is my second favorite Radiohead album. But yeah, In Rainbows has some fantastic moments, like Weird Fishes, fantastic. Jigsaw falling into place videotape. Yeah, so there's some moments that are absolutely goddamn gorgeous. So yeah, it's definitely a showcase of Tom York's brilliance. So yeah, I would definitely put in the S tier. So speaking of easy S tier, we got OK Computer, one of my all-time favorite albums. Definitely some goddamn brilliant moments. Uh, Paranoid Android, Subterranean Sick Alien, Karma Police. A lot of the album was influenced by Noam Chomsky, and the album as a whole definitely well describes kind of, I guess, paranoia, but there's like a lot of like anti-authoritarian sentiments and a lot of the anxiety of the political climate at the time. So it was a very powerful, timely album, which I think in some ways even resonates even more now. But yeah, goddamn brilliant album. Easy S tier. And speaking of easy S tier, definite. Don't know if I'm making my number one album of all time, but it's a definite contender of number one rap album of all time. I don't quite make my number one rap album is probably not even on this list. like It Takes a Nation of Millions by Public Enemy. Might be my number one rap album of all time. This might be number two. I'm not 100% sure. It's definitely on top five. It's definitely very important socially conscious album, important protest album. One last spoiler alert. Ongoing history of protestsongs.com. Every song is brilliant, even though it's long. It's one of the few long albums that I'm not going to be critical of that. Like the length is justified. Black Girl the Berry, very powerful song. Right, ended up being a very important chant at BLM rallies. So yeah, classic, timeless album. I even argue one of the most important albums of all time. So that basically sums up the top 100 list. But you'll notice I have three other albums on the bottom. So the reason why is the template I use. Basically, the top 100 changed after whoever made the template. So I added like the three albums that were not included in the template. So there's three albums here that used to be in the top 100, but I'll mention them. I'm not going to put them in the tier list, but I'll comment on them briefly. So we got the Velvet Underground, which is actually a third album. And that's a 5-star S tier. I probably actually prefer it over the Velvet Underground and Nico. The next album is Future Days by Can. I'm trying to think if I actually listened to that album or not. Can, I'm not too keen on it. I don't hate them, but I don't really feel like I can comment on that album. And then the other album is Liquid Swords by Genius and Giza. That album's excellent. It's an excellent hip hop album. It's similar to Wu-Tang. It's really effective and mix it in the martial art film sound bites. So yes, that's the tier list. So what did you think of Rate Your Music's top 100 album list? And what did you think about my tier list? Also, what are your favorite albums of all time? Please let me know in the comments. And if you want me to keep making content like this, please like and subscribe. And you can also check out my website, Ongoing History of Protest Songs.com. So not only does it feature the past history of protest music, but it also focuses on the fact that that history is ongoing. So in connection with that, you can also check out my video, which features 10 modern day artists that prove that protest music is not dead. So thanks for watching, and please stay safe.
So thanks for watching, we're glad you're here. Join us next week for another round, my dear. In this musical ranking, we scream and shout. This is Tier List Tuesday without a doubt. Get ready for another tier, let's roll the dice until next week. Keep it loud, keep it nice.